Hey girl, hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Miss Misha, and this is a brand new channel dedicated to TV reviews, celebrity gossip, and all things housewives. Before we get started, I just want to say that this is an open forum. Feel free to comment down below in the comment section, but keep it respectful. And just a disclaimer, I am country, so I will have a bit of an accent. You might want to use your closed captioning. No, I'm just kidding. But on the real, I wanted to bring you guys something different with these reviews. So as you can tell from your screen, you can't see my face. Do y'all remember the show on BET, Cedar? Maybe I'm telling my age a little bit with that one, but I just wanted to give y'all very much a little bit of Cedar tease. So that's what we're gonna do here each and every week. I hope that you will gather your wine, sit back, listen to this review. Feel free to tell me if you agree, if you disagree, and then put your comments and your thoughts down below. Let's get started. So on this week episode of Ready to Love, we see them gather around. It's kind of like day one. So it's the remaining 12 people. They gather around and nephew Tommy tells them, okay, so, I get a little homesick sometime. And when that happens to me, I feel like the best thing for me to do is get some good food in my stomach, something that's going to remind me of home. So he said, this week we're going to have a cookout. Everybody started getting all excited, but the excitement was short-lived when he let them know that this week, not only will a man be leaving, but a woman will be leaving as well. All right, so they break up and, they start getting their food, honey, and start sitting down to what appears to be breakfast. They're in pairs, so they're sitting down at these tables, and I'm starting to notice that Calfani is spending a lot of time with Adriana. And I'm not sure how Denise feels about that, but the shady producers, honey, they giving us a glimpse of what she feels, because you can see over in the corner when they pan over to her just a little bit, honey, she cutting them eyes and looking at him and looking at her, and he's not really paying attention, but she trying so hard to keep her composure, honey. It don't matter what Anthony was talking to her about at this point. She really had already blacked him out and blocked him out. And all she was thinking was, I hope that girl don't eat off his plate. I hope they ain't having a connection. Lord, please let this be over soon. So then it pans over to Anthony and Denise taking a little walk. And I could kind of tell that she was giving him friend zone vibes, because it was just the way they were interacting. It wasn't like the first time where they had that little skinny dipping date. It wasn't like that. So they were talking, and I could tell that Anthony, he really did like her. He really does like her, and he wants to really get to know her. So they sit down and they're talking, and then she reveals to him that, she decided to get her $200 in her dreams and go on down to New York City so she could be a model, which I can see that, because Denise is a beautiful lady. Her skin complexion is beautiful. She has a beautiful body. And so I can very much see her doing modeling. So I'm thinking that this show could probably be a catalyst for her to do something a little bit later. So she needs to use these 15 minutes to parlay it into something else. So they're sitting down having a very genuine conversation, and Denise opens up about pursuing her dreams. And then Anthony is in turn telling her, you know what? I really like the fact that you will let somebody know how you feel and let them in on things that you have been going through. You got some depth to you. But I could tell that Denise's mind was all preoccupied, honey. She wasn't worried about nothing that Anthony was saying. She was there physically, but mentally, she was totally somewhere else. I could just tell. It was just the vibe that I was getting from her. And y'all can tell me if I'm wrong or if you disagree. But I just feel like she was a little bit preoccupied, the night before Calfani and Adriana had that date. And now, they're sitting down to eat at breakfast, and she's trying to keep her composure because he already checked her once. So she was like, you know what? Let me just show him. Let me just prove to him I can do it. And so that's what she was trying to do. So then we cut to Jay and Joy going on their date. Now, Edwin, I want you to take notes, because this is the kind of date that a girl like Joy would actually enjoy. Because the date that you took her on last week, it was cute, but that was a date that you should have reserved for a woman like Winter. Winter seems more, more engaging and willing to be more physical. Joy is not that girl. So they sit down and they have this wine tasting, and they both have this pretty calm and energy. So they sit down, They have a bit of wine, and then Jay lets her know, you know what, this is my first time actually doing a wine tasting. And she's like, oh, okay. So she kind of felt like, okay, well, I get to show you something. But in true Jay fashion, here he come. So what kind of wine would I be? All right now, ladies, you tell me how you feel about it. I feel like Jay, every episode is fishing for compliments. Last week, he asked Winter, he let Winter know, well, there's only one Jay. And then, the episode 2 or 3 or 4 before that, Winter was telling him, you're strong, you're silent, you're a king. He just wants you to feed his ego. That's what I'm getting from him, that he wants to be fed. I'm guessing his love language is words of affirmation. So, Joy, if you're listening and you and Jay happen to ever be something, he needs words of affirmation. This is just my opinion. This is just what I'm envisioning to myself. Okay, so Joy tells him, you're like a fine wine, and you're very robust, and you're very this and you're very that. She just laying it on pretty thick. So as they take another sip of wine, Joy flips the script and she's like, okay, what kind of wine am I? And he's like, oh, well, he's trying to say something, but it don't make absolutely no sense. He's like, yeah, you're like, there's only 12 of you. And she's like, 12? I gave you limited edition and you gonna give me 12? So she was like, no, I'm one of a kind. And I'm like, I know that's right, girl. So they make it, a little bit closer, and Joy comes and sits on his lap and she says, okay, let's play a game. I'm going to get you to taste this wine and then you have to tell me what it is. Now, she already knew he was going to lose because he had just told her that he had never even been wine tasting before. So I think that was just her opportunity to get a little closer to him. And baby, Joy let that guard down and start getting loose, and she leaned in for this sweet kiss. And I'm like, okay. So now they starting to loosen up a little bit. So then after that, we see Rasheed and Adriana, and they're having their little Polaroid date. And so, I thought it was cute, but I feel like he put more effort into the date with Simone. And I don't know. I don't know if it's just me or what, but I am really feeling Rasheed and Simone together. I know it's a lot of disconnect when it comes to Simone because she wasn't as forward as the other lady starting out, and she really had to find her footing. But I think when Rasheed agreed to that date, that gave her the confidence that she was looking for, because I think she had been knocked down a peg or two, because in the beginning, it seemed like people weren't really feeling her. So they go out, they have their little Polaroid date. Truth be told, child, I was bored. Okay. When this little part came on, I was kind of bored. But what I did appreciate is that Rasheed, he got in front of the camera. Most men, they don't want to take no pictures. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. They don't, the camera and the film and the pictures, that's usually what the woman wants to do. And the man, you have to twist his arm to get him to take a picture. But Rasheed was a good sport. And because she's a model, he decided that he was going to do something that she would enjoy and something that resonated with her. And I thought that was really cool. So they had their little date. And I guess you could call it a date, but I feel like it was more of a hanging out type thing. I don't know. Something about Adriana, I just don't like. I don't know what it is. I feel like she's just there. I really truly feel like she is there for exposure, because with Calfani, she's like, oh, the other night when we were on the couch, oh, I started to feel something. Then in the confessional, when she's on the date with Rasheed, oh, I'm getting all hot and bothered and he loved me. Girl, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, okay. Adriana is just so corny to me, and she seems so childish. I know she's only 31, but I just feel like when you reach the 30 mark, you should have a little bit more sense. That's all I'm gonna say, child. She just should have a little bit more sense, because I just feel like she's just saying anything. That's just how I feel about it. Okay, so then we see Edwin and Simone. She starts talking to him, and they sit down, and baby, one thing about Simone, honey, she gonna come out in her bathing suit, honey, and give you body yada 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 yada. Okay, she gonna come out and give you her body in her bathing suit, and they're sitting down and they're talking, and she asked him, some questions, and she's like, yeah, so who were you raised by? And he's like, well, who did you grow up with? And he's like, my mom and my siblings. And she asked him, well, where was your dad? And he said, well, he lived in Houston, but I mean, I just never really saw him. And so I kind of understood what she was saying, because she goes, well, how did you feel about that? And he said, well, I don't feel any kind of way about that. She's like, he was in the same city as you and you don't feel a way that you didn't have a relationship with him? And he's like, no, I didn't. And I think she went about saying it wrong, but what she meant was, I know that hurt you. I know that had to hurt. I feel like she doesn't know how to communicate with a man. So instead of that, she says, I don't believe that. Oh, it didn't hurt you? I don't believe that. I'm like, oh my God, no, Simone. You were doing so good. You were just about to grow on me, honey. And people were starting to warm up to you. Do not blow it. But what did she do? She blew it. So she starts asking him questions over and over and over. And then she starts interrogating him. And I'm like, oh my God. So basically, she's calling him a liar. And then she hit the man with the cross examination. She was like, well, let me rephrase the question. I'm like, oh no, Your Honor, not rephrase the question. So I was like, okay, Simone, you are laying it on a bit thick. When she starts to get comfortable, she starts becoming uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So Edwin was in the confessional and he's like, I don't like these questions that she's giving me. I don't like the way she's coming off. But one thing that I didn't like about that is, okay, Joy has said on countless occasions that you need therapy and asked you, have you been to therapy and how are you dealing with this and dealing with that? But when it's coming from Simone, you don't like it. I don't know if it was just the way she was saying it or if he's just biased. I'm not sure. So you guys let me know what you think about that. So when he wasn't answering right, she decided to rephrase the question. And then you see them pan over to the scene where they're all sitting at the table. So Rasheed is basically blasting Brian, talking about how he's a man child, because he is, and he never answers a question. That's like me talking to my toddler and asking him, did you put that down there? And him just looking at me blank. That's how Brian acts. So Brian was thinking it was cute, which was a huge turnoff. He's thinking it's cute, and he refers back to the last time they went to the man cave, and he's like, yeah, nephew Tommy was asking me, was the connection weaker or stronger? And I said streaker. Boy, if you and that haircut don't shut up, like you are giving me very much Peter Pan. It's like he don't want to grow up. And he don't even realize that Alex sitting across from him looking at him in pure disgust, honey. Because baby, she with her emotions all over her face, which I can relate. And she was looking at him like, ugh. I mean, just ugh. Okay. It wasn't even I really felt like in that moment, Alex was embarrassed to have had a connection with him. So they continue to roast Brian, and he's taking it pretty well, but then he decides to deflect and, okay, bring the beat back. So they start doing the freestyle like they did in previous episodes, and then he says something that makes absolutely no sense, because who cares? And Alex has already discussed it, so who cares? Then they go over to Joy, and Joy had a few bars for him. And I thought that was cute. And I could see the spark with her and Jay when she was doing that little rap. He does look at her like very lovingly. So I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Winter, you might want to hang it up, because Jay is for Joy. And that's just the bottom line. But then we go over to little bitty Alex, honey. And people didn't think Alex was going to have something to say. But, honey, she did her little Dr. Seussical, the musical, honey. And she said, I like you, but I like Rasheed too, honey. And I know he wanted to pick his face up off the floor, but he kept his composure, laughed it off, and they went on, honey, because she's so disgusted with him. So I think she realized that he was a cornball and that he needs to grow up. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then after that, I know, that everybody was feeling like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that she actually liked Rasheed. But I'm thinking to myself, awkward. Okay. So Rasheed and Simone are outside discussing marriage and what she likes about him. And I think that she really, really, really does like him. And so she's telling him, I appreciate the fact that, you've been married before, and that's something that you wanted to do. And so you're making a very conscious effort to meet someone again and fall back into that same thing. And they had that conversation and he understood what she was saying. I thought that was so cute because I just really like them together. Aesthetically, they're pleasing. And I just like the conversation they have. I like the way he makes Simone softer. I just like everything about their connection, but I may be the only one, but I just do. So then we see Edwin and Joy. And I don't know if Joy got the memo that it was hot outside. Honey, she had that blazer on. Baby, Joy gonna wear that blazer. Honey, she looks beautiful. Now let me just say that. Joy gonna put something together, honey. I love the fro. I love the naturalness. I love her style, but sometimes we gotta dress it down. I was surprised she didn't come to the barbecue in a blazer ready for an interview. Okay. So he had on his shorts and his short sleeve shirt, and Joy had on her blazer like she liked to do. And so they sit down. Edwin starts opening up about how he can't sleep, how he took off his dog tags, and he's just opening it up and letting it all out. And that's when I noticed that Edwin is not ready to love. It appears that he is, but he has a lot of baggage. And Joy even said so in her confessional. She's like, he has a lot of layers to unpack, because she's saying it nicely. But quiet as it's kept, honey, you got too many issues to be up here talking about you ready for love. Don't nobody want to go through that with you. Yes, somebody will build with you, but at the same time, you got to have some kind of a sound foundation. And right now, you got too many things going on. You got PTSD, you have unresolved issues, you're suppressing your feelings, which Simone brought out, to all of us with not a lot of tact, but she did. So, I just feel like right now is not the time for Edwin. And I think that Joy sees that. So that made her less and less attracted to him. Then Anthony and Winter take a little walk. Anthony, he gives out his little compliment about how Winter's looking. And, he feels like that there are people that he likes, and Denise and Winter are both in the top for him. But, as they're walking, here comes Jay. And I guess he had in the back of his mind what Winter had told him last week. So he comes up with this fakeness, talking about, oh, wow, every time I see you, you with my girl. And Winter really just, oh, baby, that just made her day, honey. She just loved it. But in my mind, I was thinking, boy, please. Okay. Because if that's how you really felt, I should not have had to tell you to feel like that. So to me, that was a fake moment. That was Jay being showy and just being a pleaser like he likes to be. And I didn't appreciate it. But then here goes Winter with this. I felt like Anthony should have said something to, girl, what is wrong with you? You want Anthony to say something to Jay. You want Jay to say something to somebody else. Why do you need so much validation? Like, it's almost to the point where unless they're fighting over you 24/7, then they're not compatible with you. And you have to relate that to real life. When you go out into real life and you go on a date with him and there's a guy that's staring at you, or a guy that's looking at you, or a guy that can't tell that you and him are together, and they say something to you, do you want him to get aggressive with a random stranger? Girl, that can get you hurt in these H-Town streets, honey. You can't do that. So, I don't know what that's all about, but Winter wants everyone to fight over her. And I think that Anthony just respects the process. And Anthony was like, look, I'm going to walk on down here because I know you ain't crazy enough to just turn around and walk away with Jay. And we were just connecting. So they continue to walk, and, they talk a little bit, and she's like, hey, well, who are your top two? Because I let it be known. And that's when he lets her know it's her and Denise. And then, so then we see them continue to talk, and they're continue to walk, and, it's just as boring as Anthony like to be, honey. I feel like next episode, we need to go ahead and get rid of Anthony, because Anthony and Alex. And I say that because Anthony goes on these little mini dates. He's like in an episode for like a clip or two. And then he talks to someone, and then he's gone. And as far as Alex, now that Brian is gone, I don't feel like she really made a connection with anybody, because, of course, she could very well like Rasheed, but I just don't see that as a match. She seems more of like a little sister to him versus somebody that he would actually date. So then you see Simone making her rounds, honey. I couldn't tell if we were on an episode of Survivor or if we were on Ready to Love. So this made her look really desperate. And I was thinking, come on, Simone, don't do that. There is nothing that you need to prove to anyone at this point. Just let it be what it's going to be. So she goes over to Calfine and she starts telling him, you know, you're still in my top. And I was thinking to myself, how is this boy in your top? I haven't seen you talk to him once. So maybe that's something they do off camera, but as far as what we see as viewers, we have never really seen her interact with Calfani. But as a man, he let her know, hey, you know, I already got my top two. So, I mean, you're very beautiful. You're very smart. You're attractive. But right now, I have my eye on someone else. Then she goes to Brian of all people. And I feel like she went to Brian because, you know, you can easily manipulate him because he's a kid. So she went over to Peter Pan and she was like, you know, if my energy feels a little off, it's just because I'm a little bit nervous because, you know, it's time for elimination. And so I'm just like, Simone, don't do that. All you should have done was talk to Rasheed, had your conversation, and allow him to advocate for you. That's it. That's all you needed to do. So then the barbecue comes up. They go out and Tommy throwing down on a grill. And, you know, everybody's getting ready to separate and eat and have a good time. And so Tommy pulls Anthony over to the side and he goes, so, you know, let me know who you're feeling. Anthony starts talking about Winter and he starts talking about Denise. And nephew Tommy told him, you know, well, every woman likes to be chosen. So, I mean, you have to choose one. And I'm like, I know that's real. So he tells him that. And then Anthony gets up and proceeds to go over to where Winter is. And honey, when he went over to where Winter is, I don't know if Winter was having a bad day or if she was just a little bit on edge. But he went over there and he starts to have a conversation with her. And he let her know, you know, I really think that both of you are. And Winter said, look here. Now, I already let Jay make me number two. I will not allow another man on this show to make me number two. Okay, so Winter was like, look, tell me about me and me only. I don't want to hear nothing about Denise. I only want to hear what you feel about me. And I feel like Anthony kind of got scared a little bit because he was like, whoo, the pressure is definitely on. And I'm like, yeah, the pressure is definitely on, Anthony. And she ain't playing with you. So he says to her, you know, I just don't know. I mean, I'm still confused. And she didn't like that answer. She was like, okay, so here's yet another man telling me that he's confused and it's a choice between me and another woman. And I'm not the first choice. So that leads me to me thinking, okay, Winter, who can you genuinely make a connection with? And I feel like Winter could make a connection with Edwin. I think so because both of them have been through something. I think she would be the kind of woman that would be there for Edwin when he needs to go to these therapist appointments or when he needs to vent. I feel like that would be, they have a lot more in common than they actually think, just from my observation. So then Alex goes and she sits with nephew Tommy and she tells him that basically she doesn't want to have anything else to do with Mr. Streaker. And I'm just going to sum it up because, I mean, she was hemming and hawing. And I'm like, okay, girl, get to the point. You don't like him. You're disgusted. He's a child. He's a man child. He's Peter Pan. All right. And then we move on from Alex. So now we are in the room with the women and they're talking about who their top picks are. And then they go over to Alex. And Alex is saying that, you know, her and Brian were a little bit off this week, but you know, she doesn't know if he can change or not. And then Winter flat out lied. She was like, well, when I was on the date with him, you know, he was playing it like, you know, that ain't really nothing. And then the producers insert the clip and that he didn't say anything like that. So I was like, Winter, why would you just say, I don't know if you interpreted it that way because that is yet another man that is telling you that you're number two. But he didn't say that about Alex. And then you go over to the men and they're talking about who their choices are and what they feel. And, you know, the men are just like, you know, we're not feeling Simone. Simone makes her rounds when it's time for elimination. And she makes it so obvious because you have all this time to talk to these men. But as soon as elimination comes up, then you start going each one. You know, you're in my top. Well, you know, you're in my top. Well, you know, you're in my top. And that makes you look crazy. And then the men don't want to have anything to do with you. So that's how that goes. And that's how Simone's name got brought up. So now we're in the front of everyone. And Alex comes up to the front and she says, you know, this guy has a very good heart, but we don't feel like he's taking what is given to him and actually applying it to the process. So, Brian, we don't feel like you're ready to love. But just when I thought she was done, then she goes, and I never downplayed our relationship. And, you know, I feel like that's really messed up. And Brian's sitting there like, what? And I mean, for once, Brian was actually confused and he had a right to be because Winter had said something that was untrue. But I also felt like Alex should have reserved that conversation for when she pulled him to the side and not in front of everybody. Because she just, I mean, I guess it just had really boiled her blood that he would say something like that. So she just busted right on out like, I don't appreciate you trying to downplay me, honey, because I mean, I wasn't really feeling you like that to begin with. She basically wants to pull an Alicia. Okay. So Edwin comes up and he says, you know, this lady is very sweet and we feel like this and we feel like that. And Simone, you're not ready to love. And the thing that I really appreciated about Simone is that she took it so gracefully. She didn't yell. She didn't get upset. She gave Rasheed a hug and she appreciated the process and what she was able to get from it. And in that, I feel like the right man is going to come along for Simone and she's going to be extremely, extremely happy. So I was very proud of her about the way that she exited. And I mean, that was pretty much it for this episode. If I had to run everything down, I feel like Alex doesn't have a leg to stand on now because the one person that she was trying to make a connection with was not actually the person for her. And I feel like she put all of her eggs in one basket and now everyone has made their connections. So it's a little bit too little too late. For Anthony, I feel like he's just going with the flow, honey. Wherever the wind blows, that's where he ends up. And I feel like Winter is the same way. Winter, you need to hone in on what you want. If Jay is who you want, you need to make it known. And I do see in the clip for next week, honey, you lean in for that kiss. But I don't like the fact that you always have to ask him for something. Because in the clip, it was like, well, why haven't we kissed? And it's just, you're in constant competition. So we got to get that together. That's something that I don't really like. As far as Jay is concerned, I feel like Jay thinks he's God's gift to this season of Ready to Love. And quite frankly, I don't see it. I mean, he's attractive, but he's not the best looking thing in the world. And I feel like he thinks all the women there are in some form or fashion attracted to him. Denise, she finally gets her one-on-one time with Calfani, so you know she's gonna be happy next episode, honey. We're gonna see Denise pearly white smiling in every confessional, and she gonna be talking about her man, honey. And I guess that's when Adriana is gonna be her childish self hanging out with Rasheed. I feel like Adriana is childish. I feel like she's not actually here for love. And I just think she want to get it popping. Because if you feeling hot and warm on the inside for everybody you meet, I mean, that says something. Then you have Rasheed. I feel like Rasheed is really there to find love. But Rasheed, let me tell you this. She ghosted you. Adriana ghosted you in real life. So she gets on this show and all of a sudden you're everything she could ever want. Let's not lose sight of that. So let's mix and mingle amongst the group. And I feel very upset that they let Simone go because I feel like y'all could have actually had a connection. But Rasheed is a stand-up guy and we'll see how that goes. Then you also have Calfani. Calfani is boring. That's just my opinion. And I mean, he's going out with Denise and he's going to show her some attention and see what's going on over there. And I feel like their connection is going to be a stronger one than what he has with Adriana because I feel like she's just telling every man the exact same thing. And I mean, that's pretty much it. And then next week, we're going to see exactly how this is going to pan out, who's going to get eliminated. I've already told you my picks. I feel like it's going to be Alex and Anthony, but you guys can sound off down below and tell me what you think. Tell me how you feel because this is an open discussion. I will see you guys next week. Stay safe, stay blessed, and don't get hit with the coronavirus. Peace.